You're watching the Orlando Real podcast.
Today I interviewed Frank Martz. He's the city manager for Altamonte Springs, and we dove into what makes that area so special. We talked about the residents paying less taxes than almost anywhere else in Central Florida. We talked about jobs coming and the role in government and business and how they play well together. Stay tuned. Frank Martz, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
So tell us the story. How did you become the city manager?
Man, dumb luck, I think.
Okay.
So I never thought I would be in government at all. I thought I'd be a professional baseball player or a lawyer. Those are the two things I wanted to be.
You did that for a while, yeah?
I did. I played professional baseball for a while, got drafted, got hurt, and had to find something else to do. Was getting ready to go to law school and was in graduate school. I did an internship at this place called Altamonte Springs that I'd never heard of. And was told that the city manager there at the time was extremely progressive and insightful and innovative, and that I would love the environment. So I did an internship there and fell in love with being of service. I had the opportunity to do lots of different types of creative things. So it grew on me, and I started to really love the people I worked with. I loved the people that I got a chance to serve. And that and the economy kept me at the city. Each time that I was prepped to leave, the economy, went into a free fall. And so I got the opportunity to learn how to be a CEO, be a city manager in a very unique place. And I fell in love with the city of Altamonte Springs.
So people, it's easy to know what a mayor is, right? But what's the difference between a mayor and a city manager?
So it's a good question. I get asked that question a lot. The best way to describe the difference between being a mayor and a city manager is if you think about a business. A corporation has a corporate board of directors, and they have a chair. The mayor is like the chair. The board of directors is like a city commission. And the city manager is like a CEO. Okay. I am charged with advancing the city, figuring out how to pay for it, making recommendations to the city commission. And my role, even in the charter, my role is to not just to be a passive CEO and be told what to do. I am charged with bringing ideas, recommendations, setting policy direction. Once the city commission says we're going to go east, I figure out how to go east.
Yeah.
But one of the responsibilities of all city managers is to make sure that the services that we're delivering to our residents are delivered in an effective and efficient way. And so the biggest difference, I think, for people when they think about what's the difference between the two, the person that's making the city run every day is who's ever in charge of running the city. And there are strong mayor forms of government. Orlando, Apopka are two that I can think of. But most are run by professional CEOs, and that's the biggest difference.
That sounds like a way more efficient way to go about it, and like you're on the clock at that point all the time, right? It's not like you can just sit back and be like, hey, we did this 15 years ago. Wasn't that awesome? Like, you're like, that's cool. That was successful. Now let's keep moving on to the next thing.
Yeah, the thing that I think government often forgets about is that the life of the lifestyle and the life cycle of residents continues to change.
Sure.
Your people are born in our city, they're living in our city, their lives are being cared for at Advent Health. And if you as a manager or as a government decide this is going to be our fixed point, you're going to make almost everybody happy right then. But then tomorrow comes. Yeah. And if you're not thinking about how to make the residents that you're going to have happy lives and sustainable lives, you're not going to have a sustainable economy. We say often that 30 years ago we were thinking about today, and today we're thinking about 30 years from now.
Yeah. And so how many residents are in Altamonte Springs?
So we have about 48,000 people who live there.
It's a big city.
It's a pretty big city. As cities go, it's a pretty big city. I think the dynamic, though, is we're quad-sected by I-4 and 436, and we have 95 million cars that drive through Altamonte Springs every single year. Yeah. 95 million cars. And we have 47,000 people who live there. Sure. So our challenge is really a kind of it's a creative challenge, I guess. You can't stop the traffic. You want to protect the residents. You want to ensure their property values remain high. Because for most people, a home is their greatest investment they're ever going to have. That's true. And you still have to make sure that your residents can get around. So I think Winter Garden, where you're located, has done a great job. I think we're doing a really good job. But a lot of what we're doing is intended to support the city 20 years from now.
Yeah.
One of the things we found, Ken, and this is unusual, people who move to Altamonte Springs tend not to leave Altamonte Springs.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because where we're located and the services they get. As you know, with all of the homestead exemptions that are in place, if you live in your house for a long time, your taxable value is very low. 81% of our homestead property owners pay less than $500 a year in city taxes.
Shut up.
It costs $410 a day to put a cop on a street. So if you're living in Altamonte Springs and you're close to 436 and I-4, you're regionally connected. You're in a place where you can get, throughout Central Florida, you can access almost every place from Altamonte Springs. You can get to 2 airports. You can be in conservation areas. You can be in an urbanized setting. You can be at Red Hot and Boom with 250,000 people. One of the largest shows in Florida occurs in Altamonte Springs.
No way.
And at the same time, you can go back to your house and be in a place where you bought your house 20 years ago for $150,000 and it's worth $450,000 today. Your tax burden is low. Your service level is high. Your accessibility level is really high. And you have all of this built up equity in your home. So why would you leave?
This episode, as always, is brought to you by Posick Group. If you're looking to buy or sell anywhere in Central Florida, my real estate team and I want to be your real estate resource of choice. Check us out over on Google. We have almost 1,600 5-star reviews, and we're here to help. Reach out at theorlandoreal.com/real to get started. Yeah, well, I mean, so let's talk about that. So I'm curious your thoughts around taxes then. So do you have to bring in jobs and commercial to pay for that stuff? Or how do you keep up with a growing city and push a progressive in terms of just overall growth without having all the tax dollars to back it up?
Well, we've done a couple of things, and I would love to really give a shout out to everybody who came before me, because we started in the right direction. The city of Altamonte Springs did the first downtown DRI, one of the first in the States, and that was where they took this borrow pit, this mud pile in the middle of Altamonte called Cranes Ruse, and turned it into an entertainment venue. And really focused on eliminating transportation blight. So we have the leadership in the mid-'80s of the city of Altamonte Springs, recognizing what today would look like. Focused on how do you connect neighborhoods, as opposed to how do you just build parking lots. And so it was a really unusual thing. Our tax rate is one of the lowest in the state. We did raise taxes this past year for the first time in 10 years.
Is that because of inflation, or what is that?
It had a lot to do with the fact that inflation drove up costs. We had sometimes 16, 80% increases just in property insurance.
Sure.
But one of the things that has really helped us is that in the mid-'80s and then in the '90s, we started looking at diversifying our revenue. So we have a $130 million budget. It's not a huge budget. We do a lot of services in $130 million. Of that $130 million, only 2.8% of that revenue comes from homesteaded properties. A total of 14% of our revenue comes from property taxes of any kind.
Jeez.
We have diversified our revenue so that 86% of our revenue is coming from something other than a taxpayer.
That's a wild stat right there. So, I mean, that's the forethought of the people you think in the 80s, not the people that came before you to sign. What were they thinking at that point? Was it really like, hey, we want to be a great place for people to live, but we want to offer these services and we have to do something else? Like, that seems almost like it's a formula for other cities to follow.
So, so I started at the city as an intern in graduate school in 1991. So I've been around. Okay. And I've been part of a lot of those decisions. And most of those decisions really relate to let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing for tomorrow, not just today, for tomorrow. So we built one of the first, I'm going to use big words, dual water wastewater treatment facilities. What that really means is that reclaimed water, which all of the people listening to the podcast, all of your clients ask, how do we irrigate our lawns? We built one of the first, and it was the first in the Southeast United States, plant that created reclaimed water.
No way.
And so that was good for tomorrow. And my tomorrows began in 1991. Their tomorrows began in 1984 and 85 and 86. And the leaders that I've been bringing in, their tomorrows began yesterday and 2 years ago when they started.
Yeah.
And part of our organizational culture is let's do the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. And let's make sure that the investments that we're making are ones that are going to be not just sustainable, but create sustainability. And it's a philosophical approach. So our focus has been let's ensure that we're going to be able to run this city tomorrow.
Yeah.
The decision we make today, will that help us tomorrow? And there are lots of times we say no to stuff. I think government can do pretty much anything. I just don't think it should do everything.
That's good. Yeah, the one thing is a big deal. It's interesting. I know some I think much older countries than ours, like Japan and other. They're planning for the next 100 years, and they're not typically planning for today. And so you just don't hear that over here. It's a lot of times I need to plan for the next election cycle, and that's it, right? Whereas you guys are thinking decades in the future. Before we get too much deeper into that, I wanted to talk. I put a question down that I sent you prior to around why. Altamont almost feels like a smaller city that people don't know about, but you're doing so many forward-thinking, incredible, truly innovative things. Why the disconnect?
So, if you're standing in Altamonte Springs, I'm not sure you'd feel like it was such a sleepy place.
Yeah.
But I think it has to do with the regional nature of news. We're just outside of the Orlando, handprint, right?
Sure.
We're the first city on the north side of the Seminole County line. Fun fact, we used to be in Orange County. Altamonte Springs was an Orange County city, 100 years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so
there's a land fight.
It was a little, but I think the reason why we are not as well known in Central Florida for what we do is that Orlando's not in our name. If we were Orlando Springs, we're Orange Springs, I think we would probably have a little bit more news coverage. But we are very well known internationally, very well known nationally for the innovation work that we do, the sustainability that we have, the solid financial approaches that we have. In fact, I give speeches on organizational culture and how do you build organizational culture that attracts people. One of the innovation projects that we are doing is a digital twin. The company that's building it for us is building it for us for free, simply because they wanted to be associated with Altamonte Springs.
That's amazing.
In Central Florida, where everything starts with Orange this or Orlando that,
yeah,
it is difficult to have the Orange this and the Orlando that champion somebody else, not named Orlando or Orange.
So you got to be your own champion.
So we have to be our own champion, and we just choose to be efficient with how we use our time and how we use our focus. We don't have a difficult time finding development coming to Altamonte Springs. We have more than $1 billion worth of economic development that's going on.
Wow.
It's all very urbanized, so it's a very unique thing. The I-4 and I-4 you mentioned earlier, the tallest building between Orlando and Jacksonville. So we have a slightly different economic development profile.
Sure.
At the same time, we're trying to keep the lifestyle for 47,000 people calm and cool and functioning. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we have to make our own news rather than just existing.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe the best answer.
In that, I mean, so you and I did a bit of a prep call, and you were talking about international companies considering moving and that are moving. Is there anything you can chat about, or what's exciting for you right now?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what's exciting. We just opened the Altamont Global Innovation Lab, and we have about 41 private sector partners. We're in the process of formalizing all of the arrangements with local governments, and we're going to have 10 or 11 local governments, and hopefully all of the government entities in Seminole County sitting in the same room, listening to the same innovation, instead of having a 47,000 person city and a 32,000 person city and a 17,000 person city, all chasing the same companies, the same deals, the same funding sources from the legislature. We're going to speak as 470,000 people.
Yeah.
We're going to do joint procurement, and that attracts business. Obviously, time is money, and friction is it just shaves away all your enthusiasm and eventually all your profit. So when we say to innovation companies, listen, you may have a solution that may work for us. I believe I'm a supporter of the entire Adam Smith wealth of nations approach.
Okay.
There's, government should have an invisible hand. It should lift private sector investment. Taxpayers have already paid for the environment inside of Altamonte Springs. Why shouldn't we leverage that to try to make their lives better? There's no good answer,
Yeah.
right? So when I go to the other local governments and I say, listen, why don't you guys come into our lab? We call it Agile, AGIL with the long vowel sound, and we intend to be agile. I was on the phone on the way over here talking to an innovation company that we're probably going to sign a deal with later today, to provide an avatar-based program that will guide our veterans through the VA process.
Oh, that's cool.
It's called VetAvise, and it's a Central Florida company, small business, run by a veteran who is the CEO, is a former SEAL. But VetAvise is a great example of a small company where a private sector, private equity investor came to me and said, hey, I'm working with this company, and you guys do a great job figuring out how to work with, make government work with business. We believe that business should not realign to government. We believe government should realign to business.
Yeah.
So in the process of talking about this, I was learning about it, and I said, this sounds like a great idea. We've got 40 people who served in the armed forces.
Yeah.
The Purple Heart winners. We're a Purple Heart city.
What?
Yeah, we're a Purple Heart city. Altamonte Springs is a Purple Heart city. So tell me more. And they came in, they spoke to our veterans. I let everybody alone. They could share their experiences. We have people who have been injured in combat, and that they don't want their boss sitting there listening to that.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of them, and they said, this might really work. So later today, we're going to sign an agreement to do a local government pilot with VetAvise. We're going to have our veterans join this program. We're going to pay for it because they've already paid ahead. So we're going to pay for it. The subscription is pretty low.
Yeah.
And part of our organizational culture is that. But the other part of it is I'm going to invite all the other local governments to come in and listen to it too.
Yeah, of course.
And now we've created a lot of impact, a lot of leverage, a lot of private sector efficiency. They don't have to go to 10 places. They only have to go to one, talk to 10 organizations. So will that get covered in Orlando? Maybe.
We're going to cover it, right, Corey? Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
So let me ask you this. The regional idea then, getting other people involved. I know it's so easy to it feels like a zero-sum game, right? Do you subscribe to the idea of hey, if we can win as a region, then you can win better in your city?
I subscribe to it in the obverse. I think that we should all be trying to make our little corner of the universe better.
Yeah.
And if in the macro we're all better for that, that's great. But people, when you really get down to it, you're serving a group of people, and sometimes you're just serving one individual, and the macro is very difficult to rationalize against being of service.
Sure.
So our kind of organizational philosophy, what our culture, we call it the Altamonte way. The way we look at it is we look at it doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason, and then executing. It isn't good enough.
Oh, you're not just going to talk about it?
Yeah, it's not good enough to get to the dance and not dance.
Yeah. You didn't practice all that dancing and actually not get out there and dance. Geez, I'm the worst dancer, man. I'll tell you what. How do you balance new development then with your core people, right? Understanding that you work for the people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that pushing forward with new development, but then also respecting the homeowner?
Well, so if you ask people who live in Altamont, what's the thing you like the most? Everybody goes, well, I can get any place. I've got a regional mall. I've got a regional hospital. I've got a Seminole State College. We have A-rated schools. What do you think? What's the thing you hate the most?
Traffic.
And that's why you have traffic.
Sure.
So we did something I think is particularly brilliant. A long time ago, before I became the city manager, before I came to the city, our land use plan was built around intersections. My predecessor, Phil Penland, believed that urban sprawl would be the end of good government. Now, he believed that in the late 80s and early 90s when no one was really talking about it.
Yeah.
He said, if we start destroying the rural character of Central Florida, if we stop thinking about cities and counties start acting like cities, we'll lose the thing that makes Central Florida the greatest part of Florida, in our opinion.
Sure.
So what our city did is we created activity centers around major intersections, around I-4 and 436, around where Sunrail is and 436 and around 434 and 436 on the west side of our city. The city of Altamonte Springs, another fun fact, founded the Commuter Rail Authority. Its first office was in our city hall. Our lobbyist, our city manager, and our city attorney wrote the original enabling legislation that created the Central Florida Commuter Rail Authority.
Wow.
So we have been planning for transit for 40 years. and those activity centers have very tight design guidelines. The zoning that's inside those activity centers, they incentivize urbanized development, mid-size and some higher buildings like you see in Channel 55. And it necessarily protects residential neighborhoods. So when you're in Altamonte Springs, you can be in a neighborhood and not know 95 million people are driving by you.
Sure.
But it is because of that activity center planning. There was an article that was written some number of years ago in the Orlando Sentinel. It wasn't about Altamonte, just happened to be. But at the time, the city of Winter Park was going through mayoral races, and the new mayor, the person who was running against the then elected mayors, had a completely different vision for Winter Park. And the entire election was around, what's your vision? Well, the sitting mayor had just he just won because he had a new vision. They did a whole vision plan. And now he was being challenged by a new person who had a different vision, who wanted to do a new vision plan.
Sure.
Our vision plan was established in the mid-'80s, and we never changed it. We see that as a covenant.
Yeah.
So you ask, the great connection, how do you serve those residents? Well, the residents have changed, over those 40 years, but our land use patterns and zoning have not. If you buy a house in Altamonte Springs, you can pretty much count on the fact that, there's not going to be a CVS on your corner. Okay, there are going to be CVSs in commercial corridors.
Sure.
So they're going to be close by, but we're not going to invade the neighborhoods. Now, people do get upset from time to time about the apartment transition. Some of that is generational.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of that is the perceived traffic. The fact is, 95 million cars are coming from someplace else.
An extra 300 probably aren't going to change your life.
It's not
all
going to
that
make a big
much.
difference. But what it does is it changes the tax profile. It does provide revenue to the city that's not on the backs of these taxpayers, these people who are owning these properties, who've lived there for a long time, sometimes on fixed income. And it changes the service delivery. It changes the value of their property, but it doesn't change the taxable value of their property.
Are those apartment people, they're paying impact fees as well, yeah?
Oh, yeah, they're paying. We don't do impact fees for transportation, though.
Okay.
So most real estate developers, many people in real estate who are listening to your podcast are familiar with impact fees. Osceola County has very high impact fees on residential development. We actually have approached it differently. A part of the law we wrote. It's called mobility planning. So impact fees are about how much room is on a road, how much is it going to cost to put your cars there if there's not enough room, and if there's not enough room, how much are we going to take from you to put in another lane? Mobility planning is drawing a circle around your city and figuring out how many opportunities for movement are you creating.
Okay, I love this. So you were on a panel. We started talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to unpack it for people that don't understand. I mean, it's not just cars. You guys are looking at multimodal in a way that other cities are not.
Yeah. So we have launched Crane Rise, which is an autonomous vehicle project. It is the only one of its kind in the country. So while people are dabbling with pilots and stuff like that, and some of the old governments are doing that or did, we didn't. Okay, what we set about was finding a technology that does not create legacy infrastructure. You don't have to build rails. You don't have to build lanes.
Yeah,
it can run through a parking lot, runs by computer and a satellite. Every day, Americans are getting on airplanes that are run by autonomous vehicles. Amazon, that package was retrieved by an autonomous vehicle.
Yeah.
So moving people with autonomous vehicles is actually pretty safe. In fact, it's safer than driving. The stats show that. But our mobility plan is built around getting you from this place to that place. It's not built around you walking out your door, getting in your car, driving out on the road, into another parking lot, parking, getting out of your car, walking to another door. Our entire mobility platform is built on how do we get people to move around. So we use autonomous vehicles. The Florida Department of Transportation is using us as a statewide model to take this technology and do a use case, and then giving it to other cities, saying this is how we did it. It may not work for you, but it's how we did it.
Yeah.
And
we proved that it worked. So
we proved that it worked.
don't say it doesn't. Yeah.
So we're 16 months in now. So
That's
it's not brand new, and people are getting used to it. You also may not know, though I may have mentioned, in 1999, 2000, the city started working on a demand response algorithm. Sounds kind of snooty, but it kind of was.
Yeah. Demand for what?
To order transportation to come get you. Okay, because, and I wrote it. My philosophy was, it's not about the technology; it was about the people. If you can give them back the one thing that's most valuable to them, is their time. So if you could make this convenient, they might use it. And so we started working on this algorithm, and we did a proof of concept for the federal government. The federal government invested in our idea, and we did a proof of concept, and it worked. And we had a massive recession, the Great Recession, a few years later. And who emerged? Uber. So we called Uber, and we said, we get it. We understand. Uber at the time was being fought by local governments around the world.
Oh, sure.
In fact, the week that we started talking to Uber, the general manager in London was jailed because they were not respecting the taxi cab industry in London. So we started looking at this, and we were talking to the Uber folks, and we weren't talking to their government affairs people. We were talking to their executives. And we said, we think that Altamonte Springs is the right place for you to platform and do what's called transportation network companies, but TNCs, Ubers, as mass transportation. Not just first mile, last mile, not just drunk drive home, as mass transportation, as an alternative to the car.
Sure.
And they said, okay, let's try it. And it took us 3 months to negotiate a deal with them because they'd never done one in the world. And in 2016, we became the first city on the planet to do mass transportation with Uber.
How many Ubers are running?
At that time, it was whatever the demand was.
Sure.
Government kind of got out of the way.
Yeah.
So the taxi cab company, you'll find this interesting. The taxi cab companies were really upset with us. And they said, we want Uber to have the same rules that we have. And they were explaining why. They said, they're not a competitive advantage, that if they have the same rules, but they don't have the same rules, so there's a competitive disadvantage, and it's not safe, and it's this and it's that. And we said, so really what you're saying is you want Uber to have the same rules you have. And they said, yes. And I said, well, now we're going to deregulate the cab companies. You have the same rules. And the state changed the law around the model that we did in Altamonte Springs. And eventually, our framework was replicated in 71 other countries on 4 continents. We just were written up in the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy as one of the 20 innovators in the world changing the urban landscape. That's pretty cool.
That is very cool. That's like a feather in your cap for a long time. So do you feel like, are people starting to use it? Like you said, on demand. Are the residents taking notice and starting to utilize it?
Oh, yeah. So in 2016, this was a new concept, and we were teaching our community how to use the Uber. So really, I'll tell you, it's no different than with the AV system, with crane rides. What we're trying to do is teach people how to use things.
Yeah.
So we taught them how to use that smartphone.
Yep.
And now we're teaching them how to access transit using their smartphone. And what we will do next is we've partnered with a London-based company called One Network, Causeway One Network. And they've built an app that allows anyone in government standing in a roadway to note that this lane is closed or this road is closed. Or when we start doing a roadway improvement, we can put into this system that this lane will be closed from this date to this date. Then we're going to start teaching our community how to journey plan, how to use this map as something other than just directions.
Yeah.
And Causeway One Networks, the partnership they have with us is an immediate update to Windows Maps, to Google Maps, to Waze. So whatever you're using on your phone is going to populate with that data. And we're going to start saying to our residents, listen, don't just get in the car and plug in an address. pay attention, okay, to this
Sure.
system, because it's going to tell you how to get around those closures rather than get stuck in the closures.
Yeah, all the traffic issues that you have and all the things that you're complaining about. Here's the solution that you can help fix a lot of that or alleviate a lot of that.
Yeah, I think I think what we try to do is we try to make the time that people have better. So if you know it's coming, less frustrating than if you don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
So we give this software to our police department when there's an accident. How many times have you pulled up and you go, man, wonder when all this traffic is from?
Right.
And then a mile later, there's the accident.
Yeah.
And then Waze would say, hey, well, there's an accident here. Well, our police officers, when they get to a place where we have lane closures or intersection closures around an accident, will put into the system, there's an accident here and it's closed from here to here. If you're journey planning, your app will start dynamically routing you around that accident.
Yeah.
That eliminates some frustration. It makes your use of your time better. And that we're really focused on time, Ken. Man, if we can make time better for the people who live there and the people who work there, man, we've done our jobs.
So good. I've heard you say before, so time is massively important that you're giving back to people, but you're also investing in, instead of trying to find one size fits all, you're definitely finding different ways for people to get around. I've heard you say everything from trails to this mobility thing. Talk around that. I mean, I think most governments go about this thing where they're like, everybody needs this. And you're like, well, no, you're taking a bit of a different approach.
Yeah, if you want one type of resident, you're going to get one type of resident, and I don't think government should control what kind of residents you get.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is, and our recreation program is similar as well. What we try to do is do the best we can for the most, and recognizing there are going to be some outliers, some folks you're just not going to be able to help, or help them in the way they want to be helped.
Sure.
But bicyclists and pedestrians can coexist. Micromobility bicycles and pedestrians can coexist. Autonomous vehicles and micromobility and bicycles and pedestrians can all coexist. Mm-hmm. What can't coexist is a car someplace else. They have to be on the road.
Yeah.
So what we've been doing over the last 10 or 15 years is thinking about how do we accommodate all those other things rather than saying, hey, this is only a bike lane.
Yeah.
And we call them flex pathing. So there are places where cars can't go, but lots of other things can. And so we've really started doing, a little less picking the mode and instead connecting the places and then let people pick the mode.
Oh, that's good.
That makes sense.
That does make a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So we're doing some research and another video in a few weeks around Seminole County. Okay. And I feel like you'd have an interesting take in terms of the difference between Seminole County and what they're doing, and maybe from the city level on up to the county versus, say, Orange or Osceola. Why do you feel like Seminole County is maybe a little bit different?
So I think there are a couple obvious differences. One is just the geography is different. Seminole County is smaller than Orange County and much smaller than Osceola County. I think another significant difference is there are only 2 cities in Osceola County. There are a lot of cities in Orange County, but they're not all beside each other.
Sure.
In Seminole County, man, we're shoulder to shoulder. Okay, this is a county that's like a subway system at rush hour.
Yeah.
So we have to accommodate one another. So we have great relationships. The county commission, the county staff, the county manager, all of the managers meet frequently. We talk to one another frequently.
Go figure.
I know it's a crazy thing, right? And but the other part of it is the other, I think, very unique part of Seminole County is it was farther away from the influences of the attractions. Orange County, South Orange County, and Osceola County, deeply impacted by the presence of Universal and Disney, and what that meant for their land use patterns and growth patterns. Mm-hmm. A lot of what Seminole County grew around was the conversion of itself from a bedroom community to more of a county with cities. Mm. And a lot of the people who moved into Altamonte Springs, 40 and 50 years ago, 60 years ago, as I've gotten to know them, some of them came because of Disney, but a lot of them came because of the Space Coast worked.
Ah.
And so in getting to know some of our 80 and 90-year-old residents and learning their journey and how they find Altamont and why they stay in Altamont, it would start with, well, I was living in DC. I grew up in the DC area, so I identify with that. And I got this great job at NASA, and so we moved out, and we didn't want to live on the coast. And and now if you've grown up in DC, an hour trip, that's
Like no big deal.
that's no big deal.
Yeah.
So driving an hour over to the Space Coast, no big deal.
Sure.
And then you could drive back, and you could have this really nice house on a third of an acre in the city that really was kind of sleepy at the time in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So I think Seminole County grew with different stimulus than Orange County and Osceola County grew. And we also have, inside of this small county, we have 7 cities, and we are shoulder to shoulder.
And you guys are crushing it. And you look at like a per capita thing and the amount of jobs that are all of a sudden relocating from some of those bigger cities to Seminole County. It's really impressive to see. And you're right. And almost none of them have to do with hospitality or tourism. It's tech. It's everything. It's banking. It's finance. So it's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the really neat things is how seriously we take it.
Yeah.
I think that's maybe. I'm not saying that's a difference. I'm just saying that it's something I love about Seminole County. We really want you to come stay.
Right.
Like, we want you to be here.
Yeah.
So we do invest in schools. We invest in law enforcement and safety.
Mm-hmm.
We spend a lot of time making sure that we're being authentic in saying, welcome to Seminole County. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
And we don't have some of the battles, consequently, that I think some of the other counties throughout the state maybe have with their cities. Mm-hmm. We simply, because we're close together, we know we're going to live. We're going to manage governments that are very close together, but we all live in the community, So, and if you start your day in Altamonte Springs, and you drive one big circle around Seminole County, you will go jurisdiction to jurisdiction to jurisdiction and not know you went from Altamont to Castleberry to Oviedo to Winter Springs to Sanford to Lake Mary to Longwood back to Altamont. You'll know if you know where you're going, but if you don't and you just get in the car and kind of map it out, you want the same services from all of us.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is make sure that we're talking to one another. We're trying to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes. We try to make sure that we're not duplicating things. We don't have any dog parks in Altamonte Springs. Why? Because there are dog parks everywhere around us. One of the challenges that we have is we are the only city that has our own library, which began, so long ago, and technology is changing, and we'll see what ends up happening with. But we have 5 libraries, public libraries, and ours is the 6th.
Yeah.
We are the only city that does residential trash collection. We do that because when we have storms, I have 5 trucks and a crew to go out and pick up trees.
Yeah.
But not everybody's in Seminole County. None of us are the same, and we don't try to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest difference. If there was a difference, us in setting aside the fact that I think the stimulus for our growth was not really based on tourism and the attractions, I think the biggest difference is we all respect what each one of us is trying to do, and we champion it.
Man, that's so good. And it shows with the growth, and like, again, the people come, they don't leave the schools, everything like that. We were driving through, we were actually saying, like, literally, it's actually hard to tell where the cities start and stop. So the fact that you just affirmed that, like, I literally just said that last week. Yeah. So cool. What's something that frustrates you right now?
Oh man, today?
Yeah.
Oh, listen, how long is this podcast? Setting aside what's going on with the federal government.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your politics are, but when you disrupt the market, you disrupt hundreds of millions of people's
lives and livelihood.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, I guess one of the frustrating things is that kind of getting painted with the same brush. There's no question that there are governments in the country that are bloated, and there are government agencies that are bloated, and I've experienced that in other places. You go work with another government someplace else, and you have to talk to 5 people to get the same answer,
Sure.
that kind of stuff. So I think I have the same I have a personal frustration with inefficient, ineffective government. That's cool. But I think that from the macro standpoint, the thing that frustrates me for at least the city of Altamonte Springs is there's a lot of legislation that's passed that will dramatically impact the city of Altamonte Springs that's being put forward because of bad actors in other places in the state.
Oh gosh.
And the legislature is trying to figure out how to solve a problem that's occurring maybe in one or two counties or in a city that's in Southwest Florida
Yep.
or Southeast Florida, and we're sitting there going, hold on a second, man, this could really impact us. This could cost our residents money. This could cost our ratepayers increased rates.
Are you talking about insurance or what are you
I'm
thinking?
talking about all kinds of things: utilities, land use, preemptions.
Yeah.
800 miles, 8 hours away, we're going to figure out what's right for, a place that's at 8 hours away.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that frustrates me is that is when there is bad or ineffective or inefficient government. I'm frustrated with what it says about all government. It's kind of like when a police officer, someplace does one wrong thing, it gets every police officer feels the impact of that. And that frustrates them. Sure. It's the same with me as a government leader. It's not easy to provide services every day and in the age of Facebook and all those sorts of things. But we do it. What frustrates me is when others don't put the care and concern in like that our employees do.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that is also one of the things that's different about I think Central Florida. I know almost all the government leaders in Central Florida. To a person, I'm proud to be associated with them because I think we all care. But I have traveled, in other places in Florida. That's not the case. Yeah. And I have traveled a lot in the United States, and that's not the case. So I think I'm frustrated with just the paint us all with the same brush. We're not just a bunch of bureaucrats that can't go get a job someplace else.
Sure. You're actually proud of what you're doing. You're actually making a massive difference, which is really cool. That's really cool. I love that. I understand the frustration, and it's kind of cool to be a breath of fresh air with everything that you guys are doing and what you're accomplishing. So with that being said, what's next?
So we've opened the Altamonte Global Innovation Lab, and we're continuing to build, people in. We talked to an investment bank yesterday about joining the lab and being able to advise small startups on how to do the capital stack and how to not make, front end mistakes that could imperil their idea or their concept or their growth, their ability to scale. What's next is you tell me what's going to happen in the market today, and I'll tell you what we can or can't do tomorrow. So I think from us, for where, at least in this quarter where I'm looking, we've got some innovation projects that are going to come online. There are two companies that we partnered with to figure out how to create biodiesel out of biomasses like algae and sewage treatment, effluent, what's left over, turning it into a biodiesel. We did that pilot. It works. It takes about 1 million years in nature to convert algae to a diesel. Yeah. Okay. To a crude. We figured out how to do it in 30 minutes. And shut up. It's very cool. We've gotten a second phase of funding from the Department of Energy to now use that same technology to see if we can take forever chemicals out of water. If we can take forever chemicals out of water without spending $30 million to build a plant to do it, that is significant. Yeah. So we've got some projects like that are going forward. We just made a deal, the first one with CareerSource Central Florida, where we're taking not just interns of theirs and bringing them into our internship program. We have a very strong internship program. But we're taking externs, those people who are career shifting, and bringing them into our city and having them shadow people who are doing jobs like they want to go do. Now, when they go out to you and and someone's an admin assistant and they've made the choice to work in a restaurant and that worked for them for their lives. And now, about 8 or 9 years in, they've got a child and they want to be home more and they want to have more of a 7 to 4, 9 to 5 type of thing. Yeah. But have zero admin experience. We can take that person, CareerSource pays for their salary. We set them down beside our admin folks. Now, those admin folks who do not supervise people normally, now have the opportunity to grow a skill set for themselves.
Yeah.
And at the same time, that person who's got no admin experience is getting admin experience. We're teaching them how to use Word and Office and Calendar and how to file and things that they've never done.
Sure.
Now they may intuitively be able to do it, but they have nothing on their resumes that says they can do it. And now they come in to see you, and they come in with a resume that shows non-admin work on their resume, but 6 months at Altamonte Springs as part of the Career Source City Career Accelerator Program, with a written evaluation of their performance while they're sitting beside their supervisor, who's really not a supervisor, but it's a person that we're also growing for our future. And we've had 2 people get jobs out of that.
That's so cool.
One is an accountant who had a degree but didn't have the experience, and we just hired another one of the interns, one of the externs. So I'm really excited about that. We just struck a deal with Florida State. I think you will really like this.
Let's go.
Florida State University has a real estate center.
Okay.
And they issue real estate degrees, and I love it. And so in talking to Yvonne Baker, who is a longtime broker in Central Florida, very well known, Cushman & Wakefield, and she's very, very successful. She is in charge of that program. And we were having breakfast, and I said, hey, I got an idea for you. And she's, shoot, what's your idea? I said, what if we build an internship program for your real estate students called A Summer with the Enemy?
I love this idea. Yes, you mentioned this to me, so let's dig in. This is actually fantastic.
So we get plans from developers and brokers all the time, and they come in and everyone says time kills deals, and man, government takes so long to get stuff done. And we're going, man, your plans don't even have page numbers. You didn't sign these things. Your numbers don't match. And so I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting? I'm not necessarily trying to get real estate students to join a local government. Mm-hmm. They might. But what I am trying to do is to create relationships when those real estate students go out into the development community.
Yeah.
And they sit down and they're interviewing for a job, and there's 14 other real estate MBAs, and they're all sitting there with the same experiences. They spent the summer working for a developer, and then the last summer working for a developer.
Yep.
And now an intern sits down. I spent a week sitting in development review committee meetings with the city of Altamonte Springs, and let me tell you what they're really saying. Then I spent a week in long-range planning, and let me explain to you why the zoning can't change.
Right.
And then I spent a week in utilities and stormwater and building inspections and fire inspections and construction inspection and transportation. And over that 8-week program, they will touch all of the pieces that go into getting a permit and a CO. And they've spent, and along the way, we have things called lunch and learns, where we teach them about personal branding and we teach them proper office etiquette. When you're an internship's not a dating site, okay? Be professional. And we give them things that they take away. We actually have financial planners come in and talk to them about who's ever heard of a 401k. Mm. All of them have. Mm-hmm. If you say, should you sell all your stock before the stock market goes down? All of them say yes. And then they explain, if you are using dollar cost averaging and you continue buying at a normal pace over time, what the amount of money you're going to have versus the amount of money you would have had buying back your stocks. And so what we try to do is, with Florida State, is to try to diversify the experiences these kids are having. So when they're sitting across the table from us in 5 years as a developer's representative, before they get to that table, they're asking their engineers, are your numbers right?
Yeah. And it's brilliant, because that's like time kills deals, and so many things you put forward and they're spending money left and right. You've got an option on a piece of property that's about to expire, and yet you don't even have it set up properly. You're teaching them this massive skill to where they're going to be recruited specifically because of that program. It's absolutely brilliant. What do you want to be known for? You wrap up this career, whenever that might be, and you want to look back. What are you hoping that you're known for?
So, I kind of look at it like this. I want to be able to lay my head down and go, I did the best I could, changed some lives, had an impact. Those things are important. What I really hope for is kind of what my predecessor left to me, a ship that's in good shape. So I don't necessarily think about legacies. I don't, I've lived enough life, in baseball, you strike out in front of thousands of people,
Yeah.
the ball goes through your legs, you learn to fail, you learn to be resilient. I think if there was anything that I hope I leave behind is the sense of purpose. You can make a difference if you care. And so long as I feel like my time was created value for the people that I was serving, I'm going to sleep fine. And if our organization produces future leaders that feel the same way or even more, be maybe more creative than me or more, I don't know that you could be more risk taking than I am, but to take wherever we are when I'm done and keep going. I'm going to be good. You can't control things from, in the rearview mirror. I only look ahead, and I'm going to try to populate the city of Altamonte Springs with staff people who have the same value set. This is a company. Our residents are in businesses or shareholders. Let's do the best thing we can for our shareholders. That'll make me proud. And now I'll go find something else to do.
Right on. Well said. Frank Martz, thanks for joining us.
No, I loved it. Thanks. Honored to be here. Appreciate it.